Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting to order for the Council and Committee for the Town of Petawawa for March 24th, 2025. Welcome to members of Council, staff, and all of our members in the studio audience here. We'll begin this evening's meeting with the reading of our land acknowledgement, and this evening it's Councillor Roots.
As we gather this evening, I would like to acknowledge on behalf of the Petawawa Town Council and our community that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Omami Wenini people. We would like to thank the Omami Wenini people and express our respect and support for their rich history. And we are extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. And we wish to acknowledge our shared responsibilities in responding to the Truth and Reconciliation Commission 94 calls to action. Calls to action number 47. We call upon the federal, provincial, territorial, and municipal governments to repudiate concepts used to justify European sovereignty over Indigenous peoples and lands, such as doctrine of discovery and terris nullius, and to reform those laws, government policies, and litigation strategies that continue to rely on such concepts. Recent progress. The preamble to the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act, which came into force on June 21st, 2021, rejects all form of colonialism and notes of doctrines, policies, and practices based on advocating the superiority of peoples or individuals on the basis of national origin and racial, religious, ethnical, or culture differences, including the doctrines of discovery and terra nullius, are racist, scientifically false, legally invalid, morally condemnable, and socially unjust. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Roots. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest on any of this evening's matters? I see none, so we'll go right to our public meeting. We have a public meeting on the zoning bylaw amendment to update the town's additional residential unit zoning provisions to conform with changes to the Planning Act and the Town of Petawawa official plan. So I'd like to call this public meeting to order. And request the planner to confirm if there was a notice of the public meeting.
Yes, we did issue notice of public meeting as per the Planning Act. Because it's a town-wide amendment, we did not mail out a notice as we typically would, but it was posted on the website as per the Act.
Thank you. And were there any written comments received regarding the application?
Yes, we received a response from Enbridge Gas. They did not object to the application, but they reserved the right to amend or remove development conditions. No other public agency comments were returned. JP2G Consultants Incorporated did submit a letter with several suggestions to the town. In summary, their letter suggested that overall the provisions be less restrictive and more flexible to encourage additional residential units. That the requirement for additional residential units be that, the requirement for additional residential units to be subordinate to a primary dwelling unit be removed, as the proportional unit size restrictions that we are proposing create a barrier to developing additional residential units. An additional residential unit be permitted to be constructed on a lot before the primary building without requiring the approval of a minor variance. Suggesting that an additional residential unit be permitted on the second story of a detached structure, such as a detached garage. They also suggested that when standards reference the rural zone, they should instead refer to privately serviced lots, as there are many rural residential lots in the town that are zoned R1. They suggested that the provisions are reorganized for clarity, categorizing based on whether they apply to full, partial, private services or attached or detached additional residential units. They also suggested that we remove the dwellings per lot section of the zoning bylaw entirely, as it is outdated. And lastly, suggested that we remove the minimum dwelling size, unit size provisions throughout the entire bylaw, not just for additional residential units, as they are similarly outdated. As a result of that letter and those comments, we met with JP2G last week and we had a really productive discussion about these suggestions. We're currently reviewing their comments further, and we will address them in the report to council with all written and verbal feedback that we've received today and that letter.
Thank you. And now could you briefly explain the purpose of the amendment?
Sure. So the purpose of this town initiated amendment is to update the town's additional residential unit zoning provisions, mostly to conform with changes to the Planning Act and the town's recently updated official plan. The proposed changes include, but are not limited to, changes to definitions and terminology, parking, requirements for lot area, lot coverage, yard setbacks, and building height.
Thank you. And if you could now please explain the appeal process.
So per the Planning Act, this one, this town initiated amendment has a bit of a different appeal process. There can be no appeals of the provision to allow two ARUs on a lot on full services. So one primary plus two ARUs. So essentially the ability to have these additional 2 units on a fully serviced lot is prescribed by the province of Ontario, and that aspect of our proposed amendment cannot be appealed. However, all the other provisions can be appealed, and there's a 20-day appeal period for those provisions. Since the proposed amendment applies across the entire municipality, any registered landowner within the municipality may appeal the decision of council as it applies to these other aspects of the proposed amendment. Specified persons and public bodies also have this appeal right.
Okay, thank you. Because this is a public meeting, is there anybody in tonight's audience that wishes to come forward and have questions or comments? If you do, please come forward now and state your name into the microphone. Okay, seeing none, are there any questions from members of council? Okay, could you please explain the next steps for the application, Noah?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So town staff will be compiling all public and agency written and verbal feedback into a report that will be presented to you again. This report will include potential revisions to the proposed amendment for council to consider that may address feedback received thus far. If members of the public would like to be notified of council's decision, they must make a written request to the town. Request forms are available at the sign-in table for those interested in receiving notice of the decision.
Thank you, Noah. I will now declare this public meeting closed. Thank you, Melanie and Noah. Okay, we'll move on to the Fire and Emergency Services monthly report. Acting Deputy Fire Chief Jamie Nod is here this evening in a rare public appearance. We're ready for your report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I present to you on behalf of Acting Fire Chief Prue, the February activity report. We recommend the council accepts the activity report for February's information. I'm going to begin with Acting Fire Chief Prue's comments on February 7th. Acting Fire Chief Prue met with Guy Degagne, a consultant with the Emergency Management Group. On the 10th, the Fire and Emergency Services Master Fire Plan and Community Risk Assessment was presented to council. On the 12th, the CMC alternate, Colin Howard, and myself attended an online meeting with the Provincial Emergency Operations Group regarding the winter storm and significant weather event we were having. And Acting Fire Chief Prue on the 13th also attended a meeting. On February 28th, I attended a senior management meeting. In terms of incidents, it was a good month. We only had a total of 6 incidents that month, and nothing of any significance. So I'll just quickly go through them. We had on February 8th, we had a drop 911 call on Winston Avenue, and this was due to a child playing with a phone. We had a smoke alarm on Murphy Road, which was due to smoke from a wood stove. We had a smell of smoke, which actually turned out to be smoke inside a residence on Birch Street on February 20th. And that turned out, it was just a burnt out light ballast. We had a few fire alarms, two at the same address on Laurentian Drive. Both were due to a faulty alarm. And a third one on Cardinal Crescent on February 27th. In terms of training, our platoon training, our crews did site visits, one to the Marriott Town Suites Hotel, where they looked over sprinkler systems, mechanical rooms, got a layout for the building itself. Then they went to the Petawawa Civic Center. I'd like to thank the Civic Center staff for bringing our crews through the ammonia room, where they showed them different shutoffs, as well as alarm panels and the procedures that happen there. The crews then went back to the hall and did some self-contained breathing apparatus drills, where they used air to see how long they can last and make the air last in case of emergency. It was very, very good training. Further training that happened in the month of February was we recertified our ice water techs or technicians that are currently on the department. This is an annual thing that we do to keep up the certification. The members performed ice water rescue technical operations, as well as some self-rescues and some shore-based rescues as well. Further to that, we actually ran an ice water rescue technician course for members that did not are not at the technician level. We had 11 students partake in that, and that was a 3-day course over the dates of February 7th, 8th, and 9th. They did the operations level. They did support ice water rescue technical operations, some assessing ice and water conditions. They performed rescues, as well as shore-based rescues, and a bit of command and control, incident stabilization. In terms of maintenance, minor maintenance was done on one of our vehicles for a coolant leak. A coolant hose was repaired. There was a radio issue with one of the vehicles, and that was repaired, and a light was repaired on one of the vehicles. For buildings, a cracked thermostat was repaired, and some fit testing was done on our new hires, and we had repaired one fill valve on one of our air tanks. So very minor repairs happened in which we like to see in the month of February. In terms of fire prevention, we had 5 commercial inspections that were completed, and we did 3 residential inspections. As well, our CFPO, our Chief Fire Prevention Officer, on February 2nd, attended the Civic Center to do a fire watch for the special occasion permit for the cabin fever on Family Fun Day. We also received a complaint as a residents on Wolf Avenue in terms of housekeeping and possible hoarding issue. So on February 3rd, that was received. There was some meetings that carried on throughout on February 18th with our Chief Fire Inspector. On February 20th, inspection was conducted of the residents. Also, the Ontario Fire Marshal had meetings with myself, the Acting Fire Chief, and the Chief Fire Prevention Officer over this matter, and I'm happy to report that this matter has been rectified. So it's no longer in existence, so we're happy with that. Administration for the fire prevention, our Chief Fire Prevention Officer attended a virtual meeting with representatives. Sorry, I already mentioned that. Training, sorry. Our Chief Fire Prevention Officer took first aid and CPR training. And he also attended an online training presented by the Ontario Municipal Fire Prevention Officers Association. For smoke alarms and carbon monoxide alarm inspections, fire prevention personnel conducted 6 inspections. Our fire suppression crews had 4 inspections for a total of 10 inspections that month. And in terms of recreational fire permits, we usually don't see too many at this time of year because we don't usually do too many. We had 2 renewal permits, which brings our total of recreational fire permits up to 925. And that's all I have for the report.
Thanks, Jamie. Questions on the report? Councillor Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick, I'm sure you'll have the answer, but on the incidents, I just have never seen the drop 911 call. Is that not usually an OPP thing to go to those? I'm just wondering why we went.
Thank you for that question, Councillor Driscoll. Yes, in terms of, we don't see this too often. Most of the time when a call like that is received, depending on how it goes into the communication center through 911, majority of the time they just dispatch the OPP to the scene, and if it turns out to be something like a medical emergency or a fire emergency, then they would normally contact the communication center in Renfrew and then dispatch the appropriate resources. What happened this time, I don't know. I don't know if maybe the child had mentioned something to do with fire. We don't really know that, but this time it came in. So we obviously respond. I can probably say it's only happened in my career about a handful of times that I've seen. So it's a 1 out, yeah.
Further questions on the report? Just a question about the hoarding situation. So in the town of Petawawa, whether it's an apartment or a home, are we the first, as our fire department, the first official group that would get notification and be the first to go to that house, or would some other entity, whether it's community mental health or somebody else, would they have gone there before it was determined that the hoarding situation was a fire hazard?
Thank you for that question. It doesn't happen too often, and we really have to watch. There's a really fine line between what is hoarding and what just might be accumulation of combustibles. Most of the time it's a complaint that's either observed by someone, and majority of the time it is put in through the fire department first. I can say in this case it was picked up by another emergency. It was the OPP, and which notified us, and then we took action for the inspection.
Okay, thanks for that. Anything further? Okay, thanks for your report. I need a motion to accept the report. Moved by Councillor Roots, seconded by Councillor Carmody, that the Fire and Emergency Services Monthly Report be accepted as information. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Thanks, Jamie. Next, we have the Recreation, Culture, Tourism Monthly Activity Report. Colin Coyle, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Here to present the monthly report for February for information. First and foremost, we've done this a few times now. I'd like to present Joanne Shimmons. For those of you that don't know her, I'm hoping she was waving behind my back. She is pretty well the reason why our senior center is doing as well as it has. She's become the face of that department or that building behind the programming, behind the seniors, and has done an exceptional job. She has got to her 6th month and a month now because we were supposed to present this last month. So she has passed her probationary period to the joy of many people, including myself. We're very proud of what she's been able to do. So I just wanted to put the face to what most people here are probably hearing very positive feedback from. So I'm very proud she was able to join us today, and will continue to work with us for hopefully a long, long time. So thank you, John.
Congratulations.
So continuing on with that, I'm glad to say we have finalized everything as far as the liquor license approval for the Silver Threads. With the changeover, it was a long and drawn-out process, but it has been approved by the AGCO. So thank you to Lana for the work that she put into that, because it was a long and difficult process to get that changed over. But we are no longer using SOPs and just using the license for that facility. Carrying on to programs and events, you can see we continue, even in a quieter time, to have very popular programs and setups for programs and events over the course of February between the toddler, children, adults, and the aging programs that we've had, as well as the numerous programs that you've seen over the course that Joanne here would be overseeing, working with conveners and implementing herself as well. So it has been, even as we are in the sort of session that we're preparing for summer, we're still staying very, very active in the community with what we're able to offer to our residents. As you'll see, we've had a sort of conclusion of cabin fever. We continued through with our coffee house, a busy comedy night, and a sold-out trivia night. For those interested, we will be having another coffee night coming up at the end of this week. So we've been doing them monthly, which is a new initiative for our department. Concept is behind it is bringing sort of the culture side of bringing in different acoustic artists to perform from different areas, as far as away from Toronto and local, and a mix of that to sort of throw something new into the mix for our area. As far as tourism, myself and Ellie were at the Toronto Outdoor Show, and we've seen positive outcome from it. We've already seen registrations coming in for various events and races activities as part of Water and Dirt, and I've already fielded some questions about our area for people that would like to come and visit it. So we've had a really good turnaround for that, and it's that's unexpected. So people are looking to travel in Ontario now, and it's been a really positive turnaround for that. So we're seeing a lot of interest. You can see we have been staying pretty well on top of things with the rentals, which is on par with most months. The Civic Center is a busy place, whether we're renting the banquet hall or ice or lounge or any of the other buildings and facilities that we have. The hours and rental hours are staying consistent. And as far as up and coming, if you look in front of you, I had them dropped off today. The Summer and Community Guide was released on March 5th. So that contains basically all of our up and coming programs, camps, anything to register for this summer, or some of the special events that we're starting to do promotion with. This is the one guide that we do print. We put out 500 copies. With the price of printing, the price of mailing, the decision was made last year to still have this available at several locations throughout the town for those that want a hard copy. Otherwise, we have gone completely digital, as that is the demand and the need for our community. But we still want to be conscious that we do have those paper copies in hand for those that prefer that method. The second smaller document they have, this is a first draft of the first time that the town has moved forward with putting together a tourism guide. So this is something that we will have available in different areas. We'll be working with the OBTA to distribute it throughout the county at the different VICs, and we'll have it here at our comfort station as something that we can hand over to people. In all the years that I've been doing this, maps are still the number one requested, and local information. And this is not a finalized document. It's sort of being done internally. We can make this a bigger document, a smaller document, add more. And it will not be changed every 6 months. It'll be updated every few years as we need it to be, so it will have a long shelf life. And then last but not least, as I had mentioned before, on March 27th, our program and camp registration will be opened. This is a big time for us. Our department is on our heels getting ready for this. Shallon has done an unbelievable amount. If you look in the guide, there's basically a how to register, how to get ahead of it, how to pre-register yourself within a portfolio so you're ready to go day of, and a how-to. So we realize that there's a high demand for programs and a high demand for camps, so we don't want people to miss out on opportunities. So the department has done an exceptional job on preparing people how to do those things and make sure that all the bumps and bruises are out of the way so they can get their kids registered for programs, for camps, and get themselves registered as well. And that would be the conclusion for our last month and what's coming up.
Thanks, Colin. Questions on the report? Councillor Christian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Colin. More of a comment. From hearing from users, fellow parents, Shalyn has done a very amazing job helping people, taking them by the hand, making it user-friendly. So huge kudos to her, because it is a source of stress, definitely, for parents trying to get in those camps. So it's good that people can be proactive and have the information they need. So thank you sincerely.
Councillor Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say the community guide, I've actually had quite a few people say how professional it looks and how really nice it is, and I also will agree with them. It is very nice, and I really do like your tourism guide. I read it over before the meeting. I think it's gonna be really nice on the shelves, and people are gonna take lots of them and hopefully give them out to a lot of people they know. Thanks.
Other comments or questions? Just a question about the coffee houses. That's great to hear that you're having them once a month. Just another reason for people to get out and mingle and get together. Are they always held at the same location, the coffee houses?
Currently they are. They are held at the hall at the Civic Center purely out of the fact that we have that facility, so it doesn't cost us extra. We are putting in other initiatives that are similar in fashion. Over the course of last summer, we were holding basically just a music in the park, same concept with the coffee and dessert at different locations in and across Petawawa. So we had one out at the Rocks, just upriver of the point. We had a few right here on right by the rapids. So we're trying to showcase the variety that Petawawa has to offer. We just utilized the fact that the coffee houses were primarily in the winter, so it was a great opportunity to put those and use the hall to better use the facility that we do have, as it's a good matchup.
Right on. And yeah, great work on both of those documents, the community guide and the upcoming tourism guide. They both look fantastic and surely will help attract more people to our area. And again, all of the programming coming up in the summer. I see that we've added more programming, and so it's going to take more than 30 seconds to fill up online for all of the parents this year with all of the additional programming. And congratulations again to Joanne and everybody who works down at the Silver Threads or provides seniors programming in the town. I hear nothing but positive comments, and every month we look at the numbers, and not only the numbers, but all of the additional types of programming that are going on there. So it's great for the town, and just looking at the numbers, we know there's more seniors getting out and participating. So that's fantastic. Okay, is there anything further? All right, I need a motion to accept the report. Moved by Deputy Mayor Sabrin, seconded by Councillor Coutu, that the Recreation, Culture and Tourism Monthly Report be accepted as information. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Thanks, Colin. Next, we have the Planning and Development PL-11-2025 Town of Petawawa Development Summit Overview. Melanie.
Good evening. So PL 1125, this is just a recap of what happened almost 3 weeks ago at the Development Summit at the Civic Center, March 4th. We had over 60 stakeholders take part in the summit. What we wanted to do was just summarize in one document what we heard. And we also had a lot of requests from people that couldn't make the summit, as well as some that did make the summit, that they wanted a document like this that summarized all the pertinent information. A few developers actually said their financial institutions and investors wanted something like this to show the demand in Petawawa. So that is what this document is. It's informing or summarizing for council, but it'll also be available to these other people. So in the report, just basically outline all of the presentations that were provided, both by town staff as well as the garrison and CNL, Habitat for Humanity and the County of Renfrew, and there was a lot of information packed in those presentations. Bottom line is we need housing here in Petawawa. The garrison needs housing, CNL needs housing, and you could tell that message got out loud and clear during the presentation. The report also summarizes the discussion groups we had around the key areas of underutilized land and buildings, servicing, affordable housing, and complete communities. So that's outlined in the report as well. Overall, the feedback we got the day of the summit was very positive, and it continues to be positive as we hear from people. I can tell you that almost every day there's a call coming in, multiple inquiries, mostly actually around apartments and seniors housing in different forms. It's been very, very busy in the last 3 weeks. So we're very happy with that. The message has been received well. Everybody liked the forum, getting the information, but as well as being able to provide feedback back to us. So now we just have to keep this momentum going and translate, as I mentioned in the report, translate interest into some improved and built projects. Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Melanie. Questions on the report? Councillor Carney.
Thank you, Mayor Service. Not a question so much as just a comment and observation. It was very well done. The whole day was very professional. It was well attended, as you say, and it looked like everybody that attended got what they came for. And just one interesting comment that I heard through the day was, and you touched on it here, the people who are speaking to their finance people, bankers, whatever, maybe in Toronto, and they have no clue where Petawawa is. Petaware? And they said, like, old school stuff is great, like little handouts, glossies, you know. Well, we've got some on our desk tonight, but you know, just a one-pager on Petawawa. This is where it is. You know, some relevant facts about it, because you know, if you give them a QR code and say scan this later and check our website, it's likely not going to happen. But something that they can look at quickly, 10 or 15 seconds, and see the information they need to see. And that sounded interesting. But anyway, thanks for the day. It was really successful.
And I understand that we do have a document like that, a 1 or 2 page document that outlines, you know, population statistics and monetary statistics and all of that we have already sent, as I understand, to those who asked for it. Lots of nodding going on, so I guess it happened. Deputy Mayor Sabrin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Melanie, for this great synopsis. I was out of the country, and so I feel like I was there. Just in regards to CNL and their issues and concerns for short and medium-term accommodation, I'm just wondering, you know, folks in our community may have rooms for rent, may have small apartments or things like that. What would they need to do in order to ensure that, is there something, I guess, that they need to do with the town to ensure that those might be able to be accessible if they did want to? What does that process look like, I guess? I'm just thinking, you know, I've heard a little bit of rumblings of, I might, you know, I might be able to help that out or whatever, but again, it's a little bit more than just being interested, and just curious as to what that might look like for residents.
Yeah, so there's a few things there. What we heard from CNL for those short and medium-term rentals is their co-op students that come for 4 months, or they have a lot of international visitors that come for a few months to observe and experiment, or contractors that have to come to see something in the field, but they spend most of their time away. So it's these kind of transient people that are here for a few months up to a few years. So they're having trouble finding short-term leases for sure. Now, CNL does have a message board where employees can post places for rent. So that is something there. We also, when we update our zoning bylaw, have to provide some zoning provisions for short-term rentals because they're currently not permitted. So that's a takeaway from that conversation too, is how are we going to handle that in the town? But there's definitely conduits with CNL itself to make sure they're aware of housing opportunities.
Okay, thank you, and I'm glad to hear about the updating of the zoning because you know, there's Airbnbs, there's vacation VRBOs, there's all kinds of things, and I know we don't have something, and I know that they can be fraught with issues and concerns, and so I'm sure that you guys will be looking at that, and I don't think that this is going to go away. I think there's going to be a need for many years to come, so it'd be really great to see that come forward. Thank you.
And in discussions we had with some of the CNL members that were there, my question was asked, so obviously they have a job or an apartment posting notice board where you can put that you have a room for rent, but the question was asked, how come CNL doesn't have like a database where people can say, I have a 2-bedroom or I have this and I have that, and they just haven't gone to that kind of situation yet. So for the moment, it's just a notice board. Councillor Roots. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I can just say from working at CNL, when new employees were coming in, I know the group that they were coming into, they really helped them out, and they did use some of the relocation services that we have here in town to help them find accommodation, but it was kind of a group effort to help connect people with housing.
Councillor Roots.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Melanie, to you and the whole team who worked so hard to put this event on. This type of networking and communication, this is what grows communities. And I see some really good things coming out of that. And I hope to see more of this type of forum offered out there to the local area, because that's what attracts people, and to get that information out and knowledge about the town of Petawawa. We're open for business, so thank you.
Further questions or comments? I'll just add, again, thanks to you and everybody that had a hand in putting this on. It really showcased the town quite nicely. And I have to say there was excitement in that facility during that day. I don't want to call it flash mobs because they weren't singing and dancing, but CNL and the garrison had mobs of people around them when they found out what their housing needs were. So developers were excited. And as you say it, the excitement hasn't ended. The calls are coming, the emails are coming, and the development world is interested in the town of Petawawa. And a big part of it was us having that housing summit. We let them know what our needs are. So fantastic work, and we can't wait to see what all of this brings to the town of Petawawa. Okay, if there's no other questions, I need a motion to accept this report. Moved by Councillor Roots, seconded by Councillor Driscoll. The council accepts this report as information. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Next, we have PL-12-2025, an update to the fence bylaw. Melanie.
So this is really stimulating and exciting stuff. So keep trying to bring these bylaw updates to you. So we're trying to get the ARUs, the additional residential units, incorporated into our bylaw. Fence bylaw is before you now. So we talked to town staff that have been here for a while implementing the bylaw, also looked at what other municipalities across Ontario have in their fence bylaws. And by and large, the bylaw that we have that was passed in 2006 still largely remains relevant. I just outlined in the report a few things that we have updated or changed. So we found that the fence bylaw had different definitions than our zoning bylaw. And so we've married the two together so that, you know, a front yard in the zoning bylaw is a front yard in the fence bylaw. So that's one thing we did. The zoning bylaw has had some provisions for if you have a corner lot, you can't obscure sight lines, and the fence bylaw had a slightly different one. So we've married those two together. We've increased the height of residential, or we're proposing to increase the maximum height of residential fences from 2 meters to 2.4 meters. So we talked about that before, giving a little bit more height, but staying away from the privacy screens on top of fences. So from 6.5 feet to 8 feet. We're also proposing to allow fences in front yards, but no higher than 2.5 feet. So we see some fences in front yards around town, not very many of them, but the odd person wants to keep pets or children in the front yard. So we're proposing that. Fences on non-residential properties were silent on where they were permitted. They just said they had to be a certain height. So we are saying they're allowed in all yards, but if you want them in the front yard, they have to be set back 25 feet from the front lot line. So this would be any commercial or industrial properties that wanted to fence across in the front. They can, but not for the first 25 feet from the front lot line. And electrified fences are becoming more common. So we are proposing electrified fences in the rural zone only, subject to 3 conditions: a trickle charge limit, it's used to contain animals, and with the appropriate warning signage. And right now, the fence bylaw just says electrified fences are not allowed at all. Also, the pet-friendly electric fences, would also be permitted. And the last comment about the fence bylaw that I'll make before questions is the enforcement provisions. We just carried the current provisions forward. We've talked to council quite a bit about how we enforce many of these bylaws. Until we have more capacity for bylaw enforcement, we didn't feel we would put more stringent provisions in at this time. So what we have put in the draft bylaw is just what's in the draft bylaw today. And I am happy to answer any questions.
Questions on the fence bylaw? Councillor Kermit.
Thank you for your service. Thanks for the report, Melanie. Just a question about the 25-foot setback on the front lot line. What was the rationale for 25 feet versus something else?
25 feet is a common front yard depth required in the zoning bylaw for most zones, saying nothing within the first 25 feet.
Okay.
Further questions on the Councillor Coutu?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just as far as the alternative, so the administrative monetary penalty system, is that administratively burdensome for staff, or is that the bylaw officer, or is it both that would have to take care of that?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
I just noted in your report there was a comment. Alternative would be internal administrative monetary penalty system. So I know you're saying right now we don't have that capacity. Is it because it's on the staff side or the bylaw side?
I'll get Colin to rescue me if I need rescued. But I think it's basically if we were to start enforcing this and issuing tickets or penalties, we need a system, we need an administrative process to do that. Somebody here in town hall to issue the tickets, somebody wants to contest the tickets. How does all that work?
Does the clerk want to weigh in? Further questions or comments? I just have a question about the salvage yards. It being the only entity that we can force to have fencing put around. What about a property, whether it's commercial or residential, that has so many items on it, it appears to be a salvage yard, even though it's not technically a salvage yard? Is there some legal method we have of fencing that? You know what I mean?
Stay tuned for our clean yards bylaw, which handles kind of derelict vehicles and items being stored on properties and the quantities permitted, that kind of thing.
Okay, thanks for that answer. So when you say clean yard, is that just residential, or does that apply to commercial as well? A clean commercial yard?
It would apply to all properties in the town of Petawawa.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions? And I need a motion and I'll tell you what the motion is, just so you know. It's the council directs staff to proceed with the updated fence bylaw as proposed in attachment number 1. So if you're comfortable with that, I need a motion. Moved by Councillor Root, seconded by Councillor Carmody, that council directs staff to proceed with the updated fence bylaw as proposed in attachment number 1. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Thanks, Melanie. Next, we have Finance, FN-11-2025, Council and Committee Remuneration. My favorite word, remuneration. Christine.
Everyone's favorite tongue twister, remuneration. I think I've said it often enough. I'm not fazed by it. So this is an annual report. Again, a common theme with the reports that I bring forward to council is transparency. So the Municipal Act requires that we bring a report to council and also the public by March 31st for the previous fiscal year. So this report does just that. The only minor change to the content of the report is obviously the numbers themselves, given the annual increases. But I do want to point out that we've changed the in the position column within table 1, it's police detachment board member, just with the legislative changes that have occurred with respect to the Upper Ottawa Valley Petawawa Police Detachment Board. I don't know if I got it right, but close enough. Previously, the Police Services Board. So that's literally the only kind of change in terms of the format from the previous year. So trying to align with those legislative changes. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have on this report.
Questions on the report? Okay, if everybody's comfortable then, I need a motion to accept the report. Moved by Councillor Coutu, seconded by Councillor Carmody, that the report numbered FIN-11-2025 entitled 2024 Council and Committee Remuneration be received as information. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Okay, next we have FIN-12-2025, the 2024 Annual Development Charges Statement. Christine, and I noticed Melanie got to 12 tonight, and you had 2 reports to match.
I was going to
tied.
I was going to point that out. Yes, although I think we are nearing the end of our 2024 report, so I'm not sure how much longer I'll be able to keep up with the planning department. So again, this report and statement is a regulatory requirement, continuing that theme. So the report itself indicates or presents the approved projects that were to be funded from development charges. We weren't able to get to all of them, so the commercial and industrial land strategy did not occur. The other items on the list in the background section of the report were either completed or substantially complete by the end of 2024. So we have in the actual statement, so in the annual treasurer statement, you'll see the amounts actually transferred to I guess, our operating fund, if you will, because the development charges fund is a obligatory reserve fund. So it's basically a separate bank account that we need to transfer in and out as we collect development charges. So the statement itself does show that we have collected almost $520,000 of development charges, as well as earned approximately $92,000 in interest during 2024. And out of that, we have funded the approved projects, of $132,000. So we're transferring out $132,000. So you can see that our development charges fund is actually growing, and what those funds are eligible for is presented in attachment 2. So if you recall, we did undertake a development charges study update throughout the year in 2024, along with the multiple revisions that occurred legislatively. So it was an interesting time working with the consultants to finalize our study, but you'll see that in attachment 2, we do have an updated list. So if you compare this to 2023, because we did a new study, we have now updated the list of eligible, or I should say DC eligible projects. So the numbers are a lot bigger because those original price tags were from 2019, our last DC study. So there's a lot more and the dollars are a lot larger. So again, this is for all of the developers, kind of coinciding or piggybacking off of the Development Summit who are interested about development charges and what development charges will fund. Again, this is a great report from a transparency perspective to say, this is what your development charges are funding. It's not for a specific area of the community, it's for the wider public, especially with respect to water and sewer infrastructure as well. So I can talk about development charges a lot longer, but I will pause and give council an opportunity to answer or ask any questions.
Questions on the report? Councillor Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just looking at the list of like things that could be funded, do we have a priority list that we were looking at we would like funded kind of numbered, or is it just kind of going to be a pick and choose where we want the money to go?
So the short answer is no, there's no priority. But again, it's also an evaluation of whether or not we actually have enough funds to fund those items. Specific, for example, the fire hall building, that a portion of the building or the expansion is eligible. So of that, it's $1 million. But do we have $1 million in the development charges? No. So we could use part or some of what we have. So there is no specific priority as of yet, but it is, as with every annual budget cycle, the capital projects, are these DC eligible? Could we use some of the development charges to fund? So short answer is no priority. Long answer is kind of, but through the budget process.
Further questions? Councillor Carney.
Thank you, Mayor Service. Thanks for the report, Christine. Just a quick question about the, what does it say, amounts loaned to other development charges service category for interim financing. And there's a couple of 44,000 amounts there. I was just wondering where they went to.
So you'll notice that in the general column, it's a positive 44,000, and then under the recreation column, it's a negative 44. So it's a little bit of a shuffling because if you see that all of our studies, so the fire master plan, the recreation master plan, and the development charges study cost 132,000. So the Development Charges Act does permit kind of inter-service borrowing. It also actually allows you to, your operating fund, to borrow from your development charges fund as well, but you would be charging interest on that. So it's more of just, we will be kind of quote unquote repaying those funds as we collect development charges, but it's just to show that we didn't have enough in the general, but we can use other funds and repay it as we collect funds over time.
Further questions on the report? I just have a question about the 60% of the balance to be allocated. We know the province implemented that new rule not long ago. So does that mean at the end of each year you would have had to actually spend that amount, or you could have allocated to a project that maybe is going to occur at some point in the future?
So it is not to spend it. It is just that it's basically to, again, to show developers and the public that you are actually saving for something. You aren't just kind of collecting development charges for the sake of development charges.
So you don't have to spend 60%, because otherwise, for those larger purchases, say like a physical building, you would never be able to build up that reserve fund and to help support that purchase.
Okay, thanks for that. Any other questions? If everybody's comfortable, I need a motion to approve the report. Moved by Deputy Mayor Sabrin, seconded by Councillor Coutu, that the Development Charges Treasurer Statement 2024, as required under Section 43, Paragraph 1 of the Development Charges Act 1997 S.O.1997 and Ontario Regulation 82/98 be received, and that Council accepts the Treasurer's declaration that the town complies with Section 59.1, Paragraph 1 of the Development Charges Act 1997, and that the Treasurer's statement is made available on the town's website or upon request. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Thanks, Christine. Next, we have Economic Development, ED-07-2025, Community Improvement Plan for 3454 Petawawa Boulevard. And CAO is going to present on behalf of Christine Mitchell.
Yeah, surprise. It's a short report, pretty simple. I think everyone's aware of what our community improvement plan is or program is. It's there to help businesses with improvements, especially facade. In this case, we have an application from a lessee at 3454 Petawawa Boulevard, who operates Splash Auto, Argo, and Battery Pro. They are seeking to repair their damaged pylon sign on this property and replace the lens to advertise both the Argo and Battery Pro operations, so the additional businesses. The repair of the pylon sign is the desired outcome, as is the proper installation of the signage lens. The applicant has provided a quote for from one local sign company, but was not successful in securing a second quote after requesting multiple times. To advance this project and to support the business seeking to be compliant, Council can, at their discretion, support the application. So the recommendation, the financial implications, sorry, I skipped over that. At this point in time, we do have money available, and just looking at the signage grant provides up to 50% of eligible costs. Or our expenses up to $5,000. And of course, the proposed signage request is well below either threshold. And the proposed work is eligible under the grant program. And the recommendation is that Council, under the Community Improvement Program or Plan, enter into the necessary funding agreement for the commercial property at 3454 Petawawa Boulevard for the following CIP financial incentive program of up to $1,500 under the signage grant stream.
Thank you. Questions on the report? Councillor Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one, because I understand, and I'm still going to support this, but I know they said that they looked for multiple quotes, but like, do we have any proof, or is it not calling this person a liar, but someone could just say that? So if we are going to go against procedure of normally having multiple quotes, do we have any proof that they tried to get it?
I can't answer that question. We'd have to find that out for you. I trust Christine, applied them on this and asked for proof, and unfortunately it's not provided with the report. But if multiple calls were made, I'm assuming Christine followed up on it because that's who she is. So that's the only answer I can give at this point in time.
It's an interesting conundrum, because you think it would be in the business's best interest to get multiple quotes and find the cheapest option available to them. But in this case, it wasn't possible. Any other? Councillor Coutu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had similar thought to Adam, just as far as, due diligence, blah, blah, blah. But what comforted me in this case was, one, of course, Christine being Christine, but then looking that it's well under that threshold to be a sign. I've seen that sign. It seems like a lot of work for that amount of money. So I think we're getting a good deal, it seems like. And then, yeah, I feel assuaged by what you've said as well. I think I could support this as well. Thank you.
Any other questions or concerns? I guess the only other concern in terms of getting multiple quotes is that we know we have one sign business here in the town of Petawawa, and there are other sign businesses in other communities. So was our local sign shop access for one of the quotes? It's just a shop local thing, but I know we're all in Ontario and Renfrew County, and all the money's being spent here in Canada, so. Okay, if everybody's comfortable, I would need a mover and a second. Moved by Councillor Coutu, seconded by Councillor Carmody, that council, under the community improvement plan adopted by bylaw 1441/21, enter into the necessary funding agreement with the commercial property at 3454 Petawawa Boulevard for the following CIP financial incentive program, up to $1,500 for the signage grant. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Thanks, Scott. Next, we have the Legislative Services Monthly Activity Report. Colin.
Thank you, Mayor Service. Through you and to council, before you is my Legislative Services Report for the previous month of February. I'll just briefly highlight a few key points within my report. Under animal control, service calls for the month of February, we had 3 calls for loose and stray animals. One was on Petawawa Point, and another one was on Woodland Crescent, and then that one received a written warning issued to the owner. There was also a stray cat found on Winston and Industrial Avenue, and the animal control officer retrieved and brought the animal to the Ontario SPCA. There was also a report of a deceased cat on Summers Road, and that was retrieved and also brought into the SPCs. So, can't talk today. PCA. Thank you. Under bylaw enforcement, under February, we had 36 parking infractions issued in the month. Under snow removal, we had 4 written warnings issued for depositing snow across the road on Seamus, Rance, River Drive, and Isabel Street. And we had 1 written warning issued to a resident for depositing snow or obstructing or hindering access to a hydrant. As reported last month, we still have our transient trader license approved for Bell Canada to do door-to-door for high-speed internet. Under Commissioner Voles, we had 24 requests for the month. Two requests were declined because of power of attorney documents they were looking to sign, and with our new revisions, we no longer sign those documents. Under marriage licenses, we had 2 licenses issued in the month of February with revenue totaling $200. And under our community flags, we had the Black History Month flown for the first 2 weeks of February, and we had World Cancer Awareness Day for the last 2 weeks in February. And I will just note, we did a special 1-day flag request. We got it in this year for the Scottish Society. Councillor Carmody reported on that last week at his counselling report, and happy to say that that was flown for the 1 day, and we had a good turnout there for that as well. Available to take any questions if council has any.
Questions on the report? Okay, if you're comfortable, then I need a motion. Moved by Councillor Root, seconded by Councillor Coutu, that the Legislative Services Monthly Report be accepted as information. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried. Nothing for general matters, no closed meeting. I need a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Coutu, seconded by Councillor Carmody, that the meeting be adjourned at the call of the mayor. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried.